Yep.
Marty, how would you keep things fresh when you purposefully reduce the exercise menu? You suggest 80 to 90% of training time be dedicated to 4 exercises. How do you keep those fresh?
Well, I think we should identify them first, right?
Right.
We call them the core 4: squat, bench, deadlift, some form of overhead pressing. Those we consider the essential lifts. We have 5 variations of each of the core 4, right? Like different ways in which to do. I mean, there are 5 different ways to squat, right? 5 different ways to bench, 5 different ways to deadlift, 5 different ways to overhead press. That's just our convenient way of codifying a system for creating progressive resistance benchmarks in these core lifts. Those lifts alone should dominate your training time, some variation of. Everything else, we like to say, JP, that the core 4 that's like your meat and potatoes, and everything else is dessert or appetizers, you know. Eat your meat and potatoes, and if you have room left over, eat dessert. If you're full, skip it, you know.
Yeah, like dessert being like arm curls or whatever.
Yeah, arm work. Yeah, you know, if you have time left over, why not do some arms? Why not do some, you know, whatever. You know, where you weak at? You need to do calves. Some guys do, you know, or whatever, you know.
What can you explain some of the variations for some of the different lifts?
Well, for squat, you go from, you create a no-weight template as to how you should perform an ultra-deep weightless squat. Then you go to the kettlebell squat, right? You hold could be a kettlebell, could be a dumbbell. We used to have, in the old days, we'd grab a 45 or 100 to our chest and do squats, right?
Right.
But you go all the way down, right? Like an Olympic lifter, you go to the bottom. So phase 2 would be, phase 1 would be no weight. Phase 2 would be a kettlebell or a plate squat. Phase 3 you convert to the front squat. Phase 4 high bar back squat. Phase 5 low bar back squat. And until you go through the first 4 phases, you don't get to go to phase 5 or variation 5, right? Everyone else in the world, they jump in at low bar back squats. It's like, no. You can't. If you jump in at low bar back squats, that is an invitation to bend over, which is exactly what you don't want to do if you're trying to build legs. And the whole purpose of squatting is to build massive powerhouse world record legs, right? That's why you do them, right?
So let's be clear. When you say jump in, you're kind of talking about learning initially how to squat, the different phases of it.
Yeah, technically you have to learn the ultra basic core technique, which we have. We have that. But it's very, very specific, and actually it was taken from, Hugh Cassidy found a picture of Paul Anderson, and I don't know, have you seen the picture? 1955, Anderson is squatting 765, weighing 300 for his first world record, and it's perfect. He's not wearing any shoes or socks. He's barefooted. He doesn't have a belt on. His shins are vertical. He's sitting upright as hell. He weighs 300 pounds. I mean, he's huge. But everything is perfect. And Cassidy said, that's the way that's our squat archetype, right? And everything was built on that. And that's how Hugh built his squat style. And he handed it down to Dimmoduck, Mark Dimmoduck, world champion, Mark Chalet, world champion, me, world master champion, not world open champion, Kirk, you know, Hall of Fame guy, you know, but it was all based on a very specific technical archetype. Then when I met Ed Cohn, it was like they were doing the same damn thing, and I said, "Where'd you get that from?" And he said, "Oh, we got that from Ernie France." Ernie had come to the same conclusions out in Chicago. Then we met the Texas guys, and they were like, "God damn, you guys squat great. How did you learn to do that?" And they said, "Oh, Dennis Wright, you know." Oh, okay. Well, Dennis was a multi-time world champion. Same thing. The truth in each of the regions matched up because everybody was in pursuit of world records. And when you're in pursuit of world records, you have to be efficient. And that teaches you.
Okay, so give some examples of variations from that the non-beginner can do with the core 4 to keep things fresh.
The non-beginner.
Yeah, like for you guys have been squatting for years.
You mean a beginner? You mean a beginner?
How do you keep the squat fresh?
Oh, you change it up.
Right. So you're talking about different stance widths and switching from back squat to front squat, things like that.
Check. And you can go back to 0. You should have. I think the whole game is that you need to have personal. We are getting so far off our prearranged topic, right? I mean, we're going to talk about minimalism. You okay that we're kind of veering off in this direction?
Well, basically, we wanted to kind of discuss some of the variations that we could do on the core 4. So
at any level, that's the great thing about it. I mean, you can be afflicted or exalted. You know, you can be, from totally unfit to elite, world level guy, and still use our system. The methodology is the same. What would vary would be the payloads and the intensity, right?
Yep.
Right. But at the ultra basic, the irreducible core, you can train 3 lifts, squat, bench, deadlift, 1 time a week, and make astounding progress. Right? Everyone says, "How's that's impossible? How does that happen?" You know, I said, well, it happens because, I learned it from Hugh and from Kenny Fantano. Kenny did it, and Mark Chalet was like the king of minimalism. I trained with Mark for 6 years. Mark and I were, like brothers. And Mark,
you didn't do any less than Mark,
and still lift. No, the only thing less you could.
Otherwise, you just go on vacation, call it a day.
But you got to progress. You'd have to progress in vacation. He was great. He was great. What less could you do? Chalet, on Monday, we'd come in and we'd work up to a single rep in the squat and the bench press. Right? That was it. Now, Mark was working up to a single in the squat with what, 880, 900, right? And then in Thursday, we'd come in and we'd just deadlift. Again, work up to a single rep. He would do that for 12 straight weeks. Each week, go up the ladder. But, man, I mean, I'm telling you, it worked for him. Physically, he was freaky. I mean, he was, at his peak, he was scary. 5'9", a ripped 280, right? Very athletic. Played football for Maryland, did a little muscle work for the CIA. I mean, he was an interesting guy. With an 880 deadlift and legal 1,000-pound squat, right?
Right.
And just a monster. And that's all he refused to do anything more. And it was like, great. I mean,
yeah, working up to 1 set a week.
one set of 1 rep in 3 lifts once a week. That's it.
What these guys were able to accomplish, the level they got to
Yes.
using that. Because anybody on the and look, we've got 2 great articles coming out. The 2-part article on minimalism starting next week. So check it out. We talk a lot about this, but it's really hard to grasp and to understand how just working up to one all-out set and one all-out rep per week could produce the strength that it did. I mean, world champions were produced from this.
Yeah. Exactly. There are a lot of guys because elite powerlifters, if they've worked real jobs, tended to be blue-collar kind of guys, right? So, I mean, a lot of them worked as bouncers and stuff in the nightclub and the night industry, but a lot of them were, truck drivers and warehouse workers and dock workers, and I mean, they had tough physical jobs, and Monday through Friday they were burnt.
Yeah.
So they would rest up on Saturday and eat up on Saturday and drink up on Saturday, and Saturday, and then Sunday they'd come in and knock the hell out of it in an enduro power session, and it worked. And I trained with 3 crews like that, and we had world champions in every crew. We had world record holders in each of those crews. I mean, these were raw guys. These were legal lift dudes. I mean, these were monsters. And because of life and circumstance, they were restricted to training once a week. The lesson is that, well, guess what? The normal human doesn't have to work up to 900. They might work up to whatever, 115 for 5 in the squat, right? 95 for 5 in the bench, 165 for 5 in the deadlift. How long does that take? It takes nothing.
And depending on the circumstances, some of you guys didn't train just once a week, 1 day a week.
That's all we had.
Like you've done it, Jacoby. We talked about Dave Jacoby last week. He was a truck driver. He only had 1 day a week.
That's right.
And got it all done. And then the other guys, the guys that have a little bit more time, they'll do a split. They'll do like a 2-day split, right?
Well, what do we call it before the show? We call it where you spread it out. You're doing the same thing, but you're giving each lift its own day. So instead of doing squat, bench, dead, overhead press, arms on Sunday, you do Monday, always start the training week with legs, so you do squats. That's enough, all right? Wednesday you come in, you do bench and arms. Friday you come in, you do deadlift and overhead pressing. Boom. That's the classic powerlifting split right there. 3 day a week, 1 day for legs. They're rough. Put them at the beginning of the training week because they're the hardest. They need the most recovery. Follow it up with the easiest, the benching and the arms. No legs. Keep you fresh for Thursday or Friday when, okay, we're gonna deadlift and we're gonna also overhead press, right?
Right. And the minimalism template is not only great for building strength, but it builds some incredible size as well. I mean, look at all these guys, Karwoski and Dave Jacoby. I mean, these guys were monsters. And
You know why they were monsters?
Because they bore the weight.
Yeah, and they were, when you train with guys, you're doing like, 805 for 5. It's, you go like, oh, okay, that's why they're built like that, because they can do that. Right? It's, and you see guys, and you see Kirk could do 800 for 5 with a belt and no gear. Right? It's incredible, right?
And he had the most massive legs that you've ever seen.
He squatted once a week. That's all we ever did. Because we had the heavy deadlifts coming up 2-3 days later. We weren't squatting and deadlifting multiple times a week. How could you be fresh for deadlift if you had, what, a second squat workout?
Yeah.
How does that work?
No, on the bodybuilding side of it, if you look at someone like, it started with Mike Menser with the heavy duty,
Yep.
and then I think Dorian Yates kind of adopted that.
Yep.
Now, they were doing something similar, although being bodybuilders, they kind of hit the muscle from a few more different angles. So, for example, Dorian would warm up to one all-out max set on the flat bench, and then he'd go to an incline and then maybe a fly, and he'd do like maybe 3 total sets all out for the chest. Maybe a couple, 2-3 sets for the biceps. So he was very minimal as well. And I mean, when he stepped on stage, he was ahead of his time. I mean, that was the most beef you've ever seen on a stage ever at that time.
Well, here's what Dorian had. He was not the most symmetrical dude, but what he had is he had the size, but he also had the condition. He was the first gigantically massive guy to obtain the sub 5% body fat percentile consistently. Okay?
Yeah.
And his size was built on this. He credits it to Mike Menser, and Mike Menser credits it to the Art Jones and the Nautilus thing, the one set to failure, plus forced reps and negatives, right? That was Arthur Jones' original Nautilus strategy, which Mike Menser took and used legitimately, got great results with it. Dorian picked up on it, but actually the way that Dorian trained was much more similar to an elite powerlifter. I wrote an article for Muscle and Fitness back in the day where I noted the similarities between the greatest bodybuilder in the world at the time, which was Dorian, and the greatest powerlifter in the world at the time, which was Ed Cohn. The training similarities, I would call Dorian's bodybuilding powerlifting influenced, and I would call Ed Cohn's powerlifting bodybuilding influenced, right? I mean, they almost were doing the same routine. The difference would be that Dorian would work up to a maximum set with incredible poundage, and then he'd have his training partner Leroy step in and give him a couple of forced reps. Ed wouldn't do that. I mean, he'd cut it. And Dorian was also, it's amazing, they both did the core exercises. Dorian trained 4 times a week, had the same training split that Cohn did. Ed trained actually 5 times a week. Eddie used a lot of assistance exercises for his core 4 lifts, right? Dorian used some incredible poundage in his core bodybuilding movements. Like, for example, in the strict incline 45-degree press, 435 for 6 with then Leroy giving 2 more forced reps. That's strong, brother. Right?
Yeah. By the way, for anybody who wants to see some of that, Blood and Guts on YouTube. Go check that out.
That's the best. That's the best. It's film noir. There's next to no talking.
Yeah. That's why we like it. It's all doing and no talking.
Yeah. Actually, Julian Schmidt at the time told me. He said Dorian told him that the photographers had messed up on a particular day when they were shooting Blood and Guts, and they said, "Hey, would you mind we messed it up. We need to shoot it again. Could you do it with fake weights? And Dorian was like, why don't I just murder you now and bury you, back in... I kept behind the gym, right? No, he said, you got to come back in a week. And they were like, okay, if you insist. Anyway, allegedly, that's the story.
I wonder if they had to draw straws to decide who was going to hit him up with that info.
Yeah, I don't know. But in the end, I think it's the greatest bodybuilding video ever made.
Right.
I mean, it's just...
Let's go into a couple more things.
Yes,
quick.
sir.
We touched on intensity enhancers. Why don't you go into a couple of those and just kind of explain what you're talking about?
Yeah, intensity enhancers for the core four. So, in the squats, intensity enhancers could be, well, the first thing is extended range of motion, right? You make, go to any commercial gym and the biggest sin you see is the guys that are cutting the rep strokes. You know what I'm talking about, JP? You go in and see the guys that are doing sort of the half benches with 315.
It's an epidemic in my gym. I don't know.
Yes, man.
Anybody else, but
Oh
it's an
my
epidemic going on
God!
that.
Right, and if they were forced to do a full and complete rep, 185 would kick their ass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were making them do it right. So the first intensity enhancer is full and complete range of motion, ultra deep squats, paused and relaxed benches, slow release deadlifts, slowed lowering on the presses, no rebound, take away the bounce out of the overhead presses. That's an intensity enhancer. If you really want to get cruel, you can alter rep speed. You can do, we have 3 rep speeds. We have grind, which is, slowed and horrific. We have what we call normal, which is like the rep speed that you use when you're not thinking about it. And then we have explosive, which is like, bang, let's go. And we purposely work between all 3 of those. With a lot of emphasis on grind. Explosion is easy once you know grind. Grind is hard. That's boot camp.
And by grind, just take the squat for example. You
Slow.
bottom out and you don't explode up.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
dig in and you come up slow.
But yeah, not stupid slow. We call it barely slowed. Right, barely slow. Not like the super slow guys. Oh my God, they were taking like 20 seconds to complete a rep. No, I mean, it's just like all we want to do is we want to take all the velocity and momentum out of it and just, and it's a strategy, and your poundage is going to plummet and your ego's going to get shattered. It's okay. No one cares. No one's looking. Take your lumps, and this is the core. This is where we start at, and everything is built on that. And periodically, we need to come back and visit.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if you take the explosion out of it, and it's on a bench press or a squat, whatever you want to do,
Horrible.
man, does that fire the muscle fibers? I mean, it just incorporates everything. It's a great feel.
Yep. But it's not, I mean, it's just one arrow in the quiver. We also have periods where we love explosion. It's like, bang, let's go. Let's move this weight as fast as we can. But we do it in time blocks, usually 4 weeks at a time. We'll pick a particular groove and we say, we're going to mine this particular rep range or rep speed. What else? What other intensity enhancers? You can have an assisted rep or a resisted rep, right? a forced rep or a, actually trying to. I can't. I have any shit on that. What else?
Let's talk about how would we alter the frequency?
Well, that's easy. If you have 1 day a week, you can do all 3 lifts in 1 day. And be assured that there's plenty of precedent that you can get outstanding results.
Right.
Being limited to 1 day a week, that's incredible. What other biomotor attribute can you say that for? I'm talking about strength, speed, endurance, flexibility, agility. Of the 5 biomotor attributes, strength takes so little time, right? If it's done right.
All right, so speaking of time, all right, so there's probably people thinking, oh my God, 1 day a week is going to take me 5 hours that day.
No, because you're not an elite lifter. You're just a weak-ass normal person. How long does it take to work up to 145 for 5 in the bench press?
Right.
I'm just saying, maybe they're really strong and they can do 225 for 5 in the deadlift, which is good. That's a good weight for a normal American person. It's like, yeah, that's great, buddy. Super duper. If it's tight and crisp and looks good and technically it's correct, I'm like, yeah, that's a great jumping weight. How long does that take? 10 minutes? So you do squat, bench, and dead, and you can be done in 30 minutes. And you can be done for the week and going about your life and have your absolute strength base covered. And be making progress each week. Right? Amazing.
Unbelievable.
But with a lot of empirical, realism.
So how about, how do you know, how does a trainee know when they need to change? What are the not the symptoms, but the signs that someone needs to make some changes?
Lack of results.
Right. You get stale and your motivation is kind of disappearing. I don't know about you, but I look forward to going to the gym every day, just kicking ass and trying to.
How do you define kicking ass? You have to have
Intensity, results.
Compared to what? Yesterday?
Compared to yesterday, yeah.
2 weeks?
Looking at
Okay.
your log.
Okay, but in recent, and I think that's key. I think too many of my contemporaries want to compare themselves to their selves 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, no, you have to compare yourself to your current self and try to constantly improve upon that.
Well, I think we should amend that and say you should compare yourself, because so many of my buddies are like, oh, if I can't squat 800, I'm just going to quit. And then they quit. But you know what? You know what they like to hang on to? Their eating habits. Right? Right? So they quit training, but they keep eating the pecan pie and the lasagna. And, and then they keel over at age 55, right? Not good. Not good.
No, you do have to make the changes. As you get older, you have to come to grips with, hey, it becomes more about longevity, really. We got a guy that works for us that says he works out just to stay out of the ambulance. And that's, that's how you kind of change your way of thinking as you get older. When you're younger, it's all about, hey, I got to, outdo everybody in weight in the gym and have bigger arms than everybody
you can still eat really good, but eat less, right? I'm a foodie. I mean, I love food. I know food. I can cook good food. I love to eat good food. And I'm not going to sacrifice that on the one hand, but on the other hand, you can still get excellent results, right?
And Marty, how old are you?
39.
Okay, plus what?
That's what Jack Benny used to say every time he was asked. How old are you? He'd say 39.
Yeah, Reagan used to say, I'm celebrating my 16th anniversary of my 39th birthday.
Yeah.
My point is, look, you're close to 70, right?
Allegedly.
Okay. Well, you're a guy that has done what you've done with the weights and squatted, over 800 pounds and all that. You don't have any back problems. You're not on any medications.
No.
You're mobile. You're out there training people. You're active. You're doing things. Your mind is clear and sharp.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, most of the time. So
You might want to talk to my wife in private.
all right, look, I'm going to leave it right there because you're getting crazy on me up here.
No, not really.
Not yet. That's why we better cut it off.
Not at all. I mean, that's very realistic.
All right, so a couple things here at the end we want to say. Make sure to check out Marty's weekly call and podcast videos, Raw with Marty Gallagher at ironcompany.com.
And tell them about Brad.
Brad Gillingham?
Yeah. This is going to be cool. Well, I mean, aren't we also going to try to get him on?
We had Kirk on, Kirk Karwoski on, a month or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of our Legends series. So we had Kirk on, that went real nice. We're trying to get Brad on and some other guys. I'd like to have John Perillo on here and talk about nutrition. That would be pretty cool.
John is a genius when it comes. If you want to shed body fat, you got to man up with the Perillo procedure. But it's tough, buddy. It's a tough road to hoe. But I mean, if you follow the procedures, you get the results.
Yeah, I like what John is doing over there with his nutrition. He's got his gym over there in Ohio where he's training athletes, and he's got a good thing going on over there.
John's been on a leader in the scene since like 1980. I mean, and his products are so good. His products are so pure and so American and so. I mean, it's like when you go to visit his facility, it's like visiting a NASA lab or something. It's like everything is spotless and it's pure, and yet they're manufacturing this incredible protein powder and all that. I mean, you've had their stuff. Their stuff is incredible, but it's.
His stuff is all I buy now because it's so natural. I take the whey protein, the protein bars, the Cap Tri.
Have you mixed the chocolate high pro with whole milk? Be honest.
No, I haven't done that.
You should. Oh my God.
I love, and this is the first time I've ever tasted peach protein powder. It is so delicious.
You got to mix it with milk. You have to mix it with milk, though. It's sacrilegious otherwise. That is the best.
I remember Perillo from 1991.
It's bringing a tear to my eye.
From American Sports Network, he used to
Yes.
send that stuff. I remember taking some Cap Tri home and other stuff. So he knows his stuff. He's been around forever, so we'll try to get him on.
He's become a recluse. He's become a recluse. He has.
Listen, you've got a couple of books.
Indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
Or am I thinking of somebody else?
No, theoretically, I have books, although I haven't seen any royalties lately.
All right. They're called Purposeful Primitive and Strong Medicine. You can buy
Indeed.
those at
Check this out. So, Stacy forwarded me something. My book, Cone, The Man, the Myth, the Method.
Yeah.
Apparently, they're getting $250 per copy as a collector's item, and I understand in Europe they're getting 500 euros for a copy. And it's like, if someone would lend me some money, I would like to get my own copy, because I gave my last one away to a recently visiting Spec Ops guy. I didn't know it was that valuable. It was like,
did they quit printing?
No, I think no, I don't think so. I think Eddie's still, I think if you go to Eddie's website, I think you can get a copy. It's just weird. But
yeah.
I was like, what? $250
Well,
bucks?
Give you one for a discounted cost of maybe $200 or so, huh?
Not necessarily.
Alright, so what else are we doing here? Let's see, Marty and Kirk, they're available for online training and seminars. If you want to reach them and ask them questions about that, if you're a candidate.
I have a couple of slots available for personal training clients. Typically, our cycles last from 8 to 12 weeks, and we use the same strategies and principles that we outlined here, right, in our little conversation. And it's, we customize a periodized routine, and invariably, and we invariably get results if the individual has the circumstance,
right,
and the time, and the burning motivation. That's critical.
They will absolutely get results.
Yeah, it's just math and biology. It's not anything we invented. We were just given to us by our mentors.
Right.
So anyway,
if you want to get a hold of these guys, go to ironcompany.com, go to our athletes page, and you'll see the contact info for Marty and Kirk on there. And then if you're in need of any equipment, like strength equipment, free weights, cardio, anything else, you've got a garage gym, a commercial gym, you can visit ironcompany.com. We've got a bunch of good stuff on there. We've got the Kirk Karwoski approved power bar that's doing very well. Everybody loves it. USA made power bar, priced out at a good price. And that's about it. We'll talk to you next week.
thank you.